What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. With me, as always, to break everything down is Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Before we even get started here, I got to say I'm extremely sad this week as one of our favorite guys entering the season has just not hit, and it's making me really eat crow because I've rostered him in almost every single league.
I wish I knew who you were talking about because I feel like there's a few guys we were really excited about, and it hasn't happened. Are we speaking of my guy, Brandon Cooks?
Well, okay, that I wasn't even thinking of him, but he's one of them. He's one of them. Like, what the hell is going on in Houston? Like,
I don't
two weeks ago, Brandon Cooks goes off for 5 for 95, and last week, did he quit? Did he get benched? Did he just decide not to play?
3 or 4 games, he's had like 3 targets or less. He's not getting any catches. We're talking. So for those of you who are joining the show, if you're looking for waiver wire names, that is posted. That is on our YouTube. That is on Stitcher, iTunes, wherever you get our podcast. In this episode, we are talking some panic meter, and we're going to talk. I got 5 names on the docket to hit on, but we can mix in a few more because it's fun to talk about all the players we missed on, including Brandon Cooks, who I think is as much as it pains me, droppable at this point. Bill O'Brien has decided that he's taking over play calling duties the rest of the way, even though he did a putrid job on Sunday against the Vikings. He had his game, and he is basically what I expected Will Fuller to be, where he'd have one game where he's awesome, and then the rest would be kind of Will Fuller's been really good. If you own Will Fuller, play him if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, then leave him on your bench. If you don't want to play him because you're afraid of that risk, I would trade him to somebody else because you're going to find somebody in your league who is willing to roster him and play him, and you'll probably get a nice return, especially after this week. Brian, who are you talking about? Who is the underwhelming player that you wanted to hit on?
Well, he was one of my bold predictions to begin the year, and that's definitely not going to happen, and that's Michael Gallup. The fact that Dak Prescott leads the NFL in passing yards by almost 500.
Yeah.
And this dude only has like 170 receiving yards this season. And yesterday, in a game where we saw Dak throw for over 5 bills, he had 2 effing catches.
Yeah.
How is this even possible?
So we're going to do the panic meter game. 1 being not panicked at all. 10 being completely panicked. Brian, if I had to venture a guess, I would say you're at a 10 right about now.
I'll give it a 9. I haven't completely jumped off the bridge yet because I still think there is a world where in a game that the Cowboys are leading, I think you see Dak throw to Gallup more often in those one-on-one kind of like, oh, we can take a shot here because it's not super important to make sure of ball security. But in these games that they've been trailing, he's got to get the ball to the easy receptions in Cooper, Lamb, and Schultz more often than just throwing those jump balls with Gallup, I feel.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 10. I don't know what's happening. CeeDee Lamb clearly is the more talented player and has stolen the role. I know we both kind of assumed that it wouldn't happen so fast, but it clearly has. In fact, Amari Cooper is the team leader with 51 targets. Then Zeke, then CeeDee Lamb, then Dalton Schultz, who's been a thing for like 3.5 weeks, and then Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup is 5th on the team in targets. That's not what you're looking for. He's got 13 catches, 275 yards, only 1 touchdown. I like Michael Gallup. I'm probably going to hold on to him if I can't find better options, but I'm not going to be comfortable playing him. And the scary thing is they've had game scripts where they should be throwing all over the yard. They've had game scripts where Dak has thrown for 400 yards. Like there's going to be games like this week against the Giants where they're going to run it a lot more. They're going to have games where it's going to be slowed down, where the offense isn't going to be working as well. There's going to be other stuff happening that is going to even hamper Michael Gallup's potential even more. So at this point, he's a hold, or if you can get anything for him, or if you have T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, that kind of stuff sitting on your waiver wire, he's immediate cut, and I'm rostering somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to hold on to him in the leagues, almost all of them that I have him. But luckily, I didn't take him as a guy who was my 1 or 2 at the position. He was always like my 3rd option, or in one league, actually my 4th wide receiver off the board. So I have better, more consistent pieces to place in there. Yeah. And, if Cooper or a Lamb were to get hurt, we probably see them go back to the way that he was able to perform last season. But right now, like he's not going to be in any of my starting lineups for the foreseeable future, no matter the matchup.
3rd or 4th banana at best. Let's stay in Texas, and let's go back to that team we were just talking about, led by Bill O'Brien. And that's David Johnson, a guy that I was optimistic about. We saw some flashes once he got healthy last year at the end with Arizona. Thought there'd be good opportunities for him. This is still an offense that wants to run the ball, but he just doesn't look like it. It clearly looks like Father Time has passed him by. He doesn't have the explosion thus far, hasn't produced the games that we kind of expected. And that offensive line obviously has been a problem. Has Deshaun Watson running for his life. He's not getting a ton of volume. Granted, they have played Kansas City, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh the first 3 of the first 4 games. That I'll give him a little bit, but even
this last week was a smash spot.
Yeah, 16 carries, 63 yards, only 3 targets in the passing game. David Johnson, if you had to set 10 being incredibly panicked and 1 being not panicked at all, where are you falling with him?
I'm probably like right in the middle, like probably closer to a 6 than a 5, just because he doesn't look like the same guy that we saw as a rookie just kind of explode onto the scene. He doesn't have that burst anymore. He can't get around the corner. There was actually a play in the game where the announcers actually highlighted the difference between Dalvin Cook and David Johnson, where Cook is able to just get around the edge, and David Johnson just doesn't have the speed anymore to get past that initial defender. And like you said, their offensive line is horrible, even with the addition of Laramie Tunsil. And let's just go back to that real quick. Bill O'Brien has to be the worst roster manager of all time in the history of the NFL. The fact that they traded all of their picks for Laramie Tunsil, then they traded DeAndre Hopkins and picks for freaking David Johnson, guy DeAndre Hopkins who went to Arizona and instantaneously became the number 1 wide receiver in the pass first offense. I just don't know what's going on there. I think it's also quite possible that Deshaun Watson isn't as good as what everyone thinks he is, because there are some throws that he's throwing that look like he's Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning.
I give him a big break because of what he's dealing with, including that Bill O'Brien. Like Bill O'Brien, continues to fail and gets more responsibility. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I guess if you're the GM and the coach, you can just decide whatever you want to decide, and everyone has to deal with it. He went from coach to GM coach to now he's calling all the plays. And if you watch that game, in the 4th quarter, they finally got it together, but he was calling plays the whole game, so it's not like he took over and then it started clicking. They have work to do. I'm probably a 6 or 7 with David Johnson. Unfortunately, you're probably going to have to use him if you own him, just because in a lot of leagues you're dealing with a mass amount of injuries. Eckler and Nick Chubb and Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and all these other stud running backs out, or guys just kind of underperforming. But I don't feel good. He's obviously the injuries and just kind of the age have caught up with him. I still think there's a potential that he's fine the rest of the way and doesn't absolutely kill you. And there will be some better times ahead, especially when the matchups dictate it. They still have 2 games with the Titans, 2 games with Jacksonville. There will be better games ahead. So I would say a 6 or 7. Let's stay in the division. Let's go to Indianapolis and let's talk about TY Hilton. This is a guy that I think we talked about a week or 2 ago that I was kind of I don't see it anymore. He's had 4 games. He's seen 3 catches in 3 of the 4. He's getting some, he had 9 targets in that first game. Since then, 5, 3, and 5. He's eclipsed 50 yards twice, 52 and 53. No touchdowns. this is another guy that was known for his big explosive plays and being such a part of this offense. But with Phillip there, it doesn't really matter which receiver you are. You could be Zach Pascal or Michael Pittman or Mo Willie Cox or Jack Doyle or Nyheim Hines. He's gonna throw it to all the different guys, and there's gonna be a lot of 3 or 4 catches for this guy and 3 or 4 catches for that guy, and nobody pelted with targets, and obviously not a lot of down the field stuff. So unless TY breaks a 7-yard hitch all the way to the end zone, you're never going to feel good about him. I'm at a 9 with TY.
Okay, so I'm at a 10 with TY. Him more so than Michael Gallup, because Hilton hasn't shown the ability to make those big plays anymore since Andrew Luck has been gone. The upside for him on a week is capped at a touchdown and maybe 4 or 5 receptions and that 60 to 70 yards, it seems like. And you're not going to get any more of those games that we used to see out of him where he had 6 catches for a $120 and 2 touches. Like, that's just not a world that he's able to produce in anymore because of the way that this team has 2 running backs that they like, or 3 running backs that they like. And Phillip Rivers back there showing the willingness to spread it around, something he didn't do in LA or San Diego and LA for the Chargers. And yeah, he's another guy. Like, I'm adding a T. Higgins. If Justin Jefferson miraculously is still available, I'm adding him. I'd rather have Greg Ward than T.Y. Hilton right now. And that's pretty sad. Brandon Ayuk is somebody I'd much rather have than him. Yeah.
Ayuk for sure.
Hilton go bye-bye.
Yeah, well, because this team, especially, this team has revamped that defense. DeForest Buckner is a stud up the middle. They have Darius Leonard. They were still able, even without Malik Hooker this week, to keep it rolling.
Xavier Rhodes was the number 1 rated cornerback according to Pro Football Focus. Who the hell would have thought that would have happened after his atrocious finish in Minnesota?
Yeah, so this defense is really good. Like you mentioned, they want to run the ball. Unfortunately for Jonathan Taylor owners, that includes Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines. That backfield's a big mess. We thought maybe it was the Jonathan Taylor show. It doesn't seem to be that so far. But yeah, among pass catchers, there's so many other places I'd rather look. Even like Michael Gallup, I'd much rather have, like you mentioned, on a long-term play. Let's go to Carolina and let's talk about this offense as a whole and DJ Moore. DJ Moore was like a 3rd, 4th round pick, a guy that many of us expected to take a huge step forward, looked amazing a season ago. And yet this has been the Teddy Bridgewater to Robbie Anderson show, with DJ Moore not being heavily involved. He had 13 targets against Tampa Bay in 120 yards, but outside of that, he hasn't killed you, especially if you're in PPR. But 4, 2, and 4 with 50, 60 yards is not exactly what you're looking for out of potentially your wide receiver 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think for me, this is more in the 3 range, just knowing the amount of passes that this team wants to attempt. And the last 2 weeks, they've played much better. And they're not going to have weeks like that often. Like when they go up against Tampa, when they go up against Atlanta, when they go up against New Orleans, they're going to be trailing and they're going to have to get the ball down the field. And those little dump offs to Davis and Robbie Anderson are not going to be the only way that they're able to do that. So they're going to have to target DJ Moore, deeper, which he is that number 1 guy, the guy that can stretch the defense more so. And yeah, I would be looking to buy him low right now if you have somebody who is on the higher side of the panic meter, because there are going to be better days right now.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more optimistic. I'm probably I'm like a 3 or a 4, I think, is kind of where I sit with him. I'm a lot like you in terms of better stuff is probably coming. I am a little concerned because he is clearly, if you had told me to kind of predict how this offense would shake out, I figured Robbie Anderson would be the deeper target guy. Turns out Anderson's average target is 13.5 yards, or average catch rather, where DJ Moore is over 16. where Robbie Anderson's 28 of 34 on his targets, where DJ Moore is 18 of 32. So like they're both getting similar targets, but Moore is actually getting more down the field, which could be a good thing. But if Teddy Bridgewater is having a harder time getting the ball accurately down the field, that could lead to a frustrating season. DJ Moore is, like you said, somebody that would be interesting. I would be interested to potentially go target in a trade, especially if you can give up maybe one of these kind of running backs that have been vaulted into a pseudo starting role, or you can sell high on somebody that, you know, maybe you're not buying quite as much. I think better times are ahead. I think this is an offense that has been interesting, and as you mentioned, with games against Tampa and Carolina, or Tampa and Atlanta, and other opportunities, there will be more passing potential. Now, their Christian McCaffrey return is around the corner. Do you think that's something that owners should play into their head in terms of, okay, what could this offense look like when he comes back? Does it revert more to that really run heavy? Obviously, Mike Davis has been involved, but a lot of passing work for him. You know, how do we see this offense shaking out when McCaffrey returns?
I do think they kind of revert back slightly to the way that they wanted to get the ball into McCaffrey's hands, more so than what they're doing with Mike Davis right now. That being said, their success these last two games have come through the air and through Teddy Bridgewater hitting those wide receivers and those quick passes. And I think they're going to factor in winning over just who their best player is. And they're going to continue doing what has been successful for them. And I do think we also see a slight decrease in opportunities for Christian McCaffrey with how well Davis has performed. I think he eats into his workload slightly. Not a lot, because Christian McCaffrey's in another world of talent, but I think it may actually help DJ Moore if McCaffrey comes back, just with teams. Because teams, nobody's going to say, oh my God, we have to go out there and the number one person we have to stop is Mike Davis. Like that's not any defense's game plan coming into a week. So that DJ Moore will be fine. And like I said, go get him if somebody is willing to dump him for less than what they spent in draft capital.
Yeah. You should be looking to trade for him, especially, like I said, if you have pieces that can help another owner this week, they might be willing to let him go on the cheap. The fifth guy on our panic meter is a guy that we talked about as a guy we're avoiding coming into the season, especially like at his ADP. This was a guy that was going at the end of the first, early part of the second. You know, we expected this Cardinals offense to take a step forward. It really hasn't leaped forward like kind of we thought it might. And the most impressive runner has actually been Kyler Murray on a week-to-week basis. With Kenyon Drake, where is your panic meter set?
Oh man, it's probably teetering into that upper echelon of like an 8. I'm still at like a 7 right now, just knowing like how dynamic this offense can be. He's getting the red zone opportunities. He's seeing the goal line carries. He's just not able to punch it in. Now, my worry is that they're going to go more to that 50-50 timeshare that we hit on our previous pod, as Chase Edmonds looks like the better running back for this offense, the way that they want to run it. And Kenyon Drake is, again, he's, to me, very similar to what David Johnson is this year. He doesn't look the same as he did the previous season, or in Johnson's case, the same as he did early on in his career. Drake is creating like no yards after contact. He's not making anybody miss. And yeah, I'm worried about his role going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, and that was kind of my concern coming into the season in terms of Kenyon Drake being pushed up as high as he was, because we've seen it a lot where a player comes in, you know, in kind of mid-season, they get him involved a lot. They find ways to have him produce, and then they kind of get vaulted up heading into the next season, and they kind of underwhelm. But this year, you know, that has kind of been the case, and that was why I wasn't interested in him at his draft day price. But like you, I feel like better times are coming. I do have some concern though, because he did leave Sunday's game. They're saying that it was he just had the wind knocked out of him. But this is already an offense that has found ways to utilize both Edmonds and Drake. And if Drake continues to not perform, I could see Edmonds getting more and more volume. And as we mentioned with DeAndre Hopkins going there, they're throwing Isabella and Christian Kirk, and even Dan Arnold's getting involved.
Right.
So I'm cautiously optimistic about Drake. He's not somebody I'm trading for, but he's also not somebody I'm cutting. He's probably like a 6 for me, but I also came in with lower expectations. So if you are less optimistic and more concerned than I am, I totally get it, especially if you came into the year where he could be your RB1 or high-end RB2 with RB1 potential, because he's definitely not doing that.
Yeah, I think that's the big reason why I have him more like a 7, closer to an 8, just because you likely spent a late first or early second round pick on him as your RB1, or even if he's your RB2, that early of a draft pick, you passed up on a bunch of guys who, are performing at a consistent basis, where Kenyon Drake is just not producing for fantasy teams or in real life for that matter. And, if he sees a decrease in playing time or how many touches he's getting per game, then his value gets lessened even more, and he's definitely not worth where you drafted him at.
Yeah, I'm pulling up Fantasy Pros scoring right now just to look at some ideas of other names that kind of went like Josh Jacobs went in that range, Miles Sanders went in that range. Those are two guys that I was taking. Clyde
Josh Jacobs for sure.
Oh yeah. This list is interesting. Obviously, Alvin Kamara has become a star and the number one. He's actually on pace to break all of Christian McCaffrey's numbers from last year, which is pretty insane. It's still Dalvin, Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Chris Carson was another guy in that 2 to 3 round range that made a lot of sense. But other names in here include James Robinson, who's number 6 overall, Kareem Hunt, who's number 7 overall, Melvin Gordon, who's become a top 12 option, Jerick McKinnon, who's a top 12 option. It's quite the list. And Antonio Gibson, who is looking like a freaking stud.
Hell yeah.
And then there's Devin Singletary. How about that? Anyway.
He still can't punch it in from in close. He finally
scored this week, and that's all we needed.
Finally able to get one.
Yeah. Thanks. You should be sending him a thank you card for that GPP win over on DraftKings. All right, Brian, this was a lot of fun. As we mentioned, if you are enjoying what we're doing, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you mash that thumbs up and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Hit us up on iTunes with reviews, rate the show. It really does do a lot for us and takes a matter of moments. Brian and I will be back on Thursday to preview the Week 5 slate. Enjoy the doubleheader on Monday if you're watching this. If we mentioned on the waiver wire, as I mentioned, the waiver wire show is up. If there's anybody that doesn't get mentioned, I will make sure, because we record this ahead of the Monday night games, I will make sure to include them in my article, which is live on Fake Pigskin. Brian's Ride the Pine or Time to Shine article is also up on Fake Pigskin, usually by Friday, to help get you set. And then every Sunday morning, we are live on YouTube answering all your questions. So make sure you mash that thumbs up wherever you get the pod, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really does do a lot for us. But for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.